Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the final breakout session of the Deliver 2024. You'll have to wait a whole year to see us again on stage. Today's afternoon, we'll learn all about predictive fulfillment by Ram and by Bricz. And we're so excited to have him here to present what you do and how you do it. If you have any questions, raise your hand, state your name, maybe your company, and ask away. We'd love to gather all your questions at the end, but if they're really urgent, just raise your hand and we'll find you and we'll get a conversation going between the Ram and the group. Have a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And we'll see you at the end.
Thank you, Sophie. I hope you can all hear me okay. Thanks. I know Sophie said this is the last session. Yeah, I am hoping we save the best for the last. Thank you. And also thank you, Sophie, for dressing up for Team Blue. Thanks. All right. I am Ram Gopalakrishnan, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bricz. We are a supply chain solutions company based in Atlanta, Georgia, but have operations in UK, Netherlands, and India as well. And as part of the process, one of the little pieces of information, I don't know if you guys know, Atlanta these days, it's called the Supply Chain Valley. Just like the Silicon Valley, Atlanta produces a lot of cutting-edge supply chain innovation. And I'm glad to be here to talk about one of the topics I am passionate about, predictive fulfillment, right? So first, these days, consumer convenience is a big deal. Like people want to buy stuff where they want it, how they want it, when they want it. And one of the biggest challenges for a lot of retailers and brands is to provide that fast, free, convenient options with, profitable margins. And that is the topic that we are going to talk about. And we're going to talk about a lot of the evolution, and how retailers and brands can position themselves for success in the future. With that, it is, no secret that, processing e-commerce is a lot more harder and it's a lot more expensive. There has been multiple studies that present information saying with e-commerce, a lot of the retailers and brands are losing margins, and commerce is not the same, right? Like I grew up in India, and even during that time, convenience, like this was almost in an era where internet was new, right? Even in that era, like my mom used to, place an order via phone to the local convenience store, and they would come and deliver stuff, right? So these days we call that micro fulfillment or any number of other names. But that's been the evolution of commerce, right? And particularly, like with the pandemic, things are starting to progress at an even faster pace, right? Like, prior to that, 95% of commerce happened in a store location. But today, e-commerce is significantly bigger for sellers and brands. And today, you see a trend of 20, 30, 40% of the commerce happening from a digital source, right? And with that, what has happened is it has created a lot of challenges for sellers and brands to offer fast, free, and convenient options while maintaining profits and margins. And it is not an easy problem to solve, right? Like for over 30, 40 years, like a lot of the retailers have had a very established process. Like if you made product in Asia or South America or any number of locations, like you had a very well oiled machine for the first mile, and then you had a very good last mile operation over the last 10 years. But then the area that has always been neglected is the middle mile, because the first mile is what the product, is the route that the product takes to get into the seller or the retailer's network. And the last mile is where you hand it to the end consumer. And everything in between are the empty miles, and that determines your margins and profitability. So there has been an increased emphasis on optimizing the middle mile of the supply chain, right? And that's where a technology like predictive fulfillment comes into play, where you look at how do you optimally place product closer to an end consumer, and how do you do dynamic network optimization so that your resources and assets, the three key assets for any seller or brand, is your network, your inventory, and your labor. And the path to success through predictive fulfillment is continuous optimization of these three assets. So that's what we'll talk about for a bit today. And we said there's three, primary reasons why it's a complex problem to solve. First is, the amount of volatility in demand and supply these days is significantly different from what it used to be, right? So when sellers and brands had 95% of their commerce in a store location, they had a very methodical replenishment process that would take care of looking at POS data, point of sale data, and replenishing it to the store location. And it was almost on autopilot until, you know, there was a lot more convenience expectations from a consumer. Today, most of us would like to order from our couch, right? And that expectation, created the necessity for more innovative ways to set up a supply chain, right? And as part of that process, one of the key things, a lot of you would encounter, yeah, particularly as a retailer or brand, like your channels for sales is multi-dimensional today. And there is a lot of external influences that control the outcome of how profitable you become in that operation. Like any number of financial reports today from large retailers and brands, every quarter you see a common theme that says same store revenue decreased by 2%, whereas digital revenue increased by 15%. And that is a common theme. But that does not necessarily mean the profitability looks around the same, right? Yeah, while revenue, is compensated by digital sales, in order to service that customer, it takes a lot more cost and expense. So that's where the challenges lie for a brand or a retailer. And as you think about some of the external factors, it could be anything from, something as simple as weather, right? Or, today it is the day and age of, selling through social media, right? Like in the US, like if a Kardashian, puts out a tweet, that rapidly wipes out inventory in a certain location, and now you're struggling to fulfill orders. And that's the type of volatility that, sellers and brands are dealing with. And that is reason number one. The second reason, I think this is something that every retailer and brand should be highly familiar with. The way, the setup of a supply chain team or, the entire organizational structure is set up in parts to service individual channels. So if I am waking up saying, hey, my responsibility is supply chain, all I care about is, getting the product in the hands of the consumer. And a merchant wakes up saying, my responsibility is to put the product in a store location, right? And an e-commerce leader says, my responsibility is to provide service levels to the end consumer. Everybody has very different incentives. And then that leads to a description of what is store inventory, what is e-commerce inventory, and what is like a wholesale inventory. End of the day, there's segmentation of your assets that leave a big gap in looking at it from an enterprise viewpoint, right? These days, when I talk to a lot of our customers, yeah, we work with a lot of big brands and retailers like the Home Depot, Chanel, Adidas. Like, yeah, when I talk to customers, one of the key things that I convey is, retail needs a new type of CIO, a chief inventory officer, like who can make decisions for the enterprise rather than just for silos. So that's kind of the second problem. And the third challenge that you deal with is the disconnect between planning and fulfillment, right? Even like industry experts like Gartner, yeah, even today they look at it as supply chain planning and supply chain execution. But now the conversations are slowly moving towards interconnected supply chain. And when you look at the supply chain solutions landscape, that is also set up in a similar fashion. There's companies that do exceptionally well with demand planning, network optimization, things like that. So they do a lot of planning. And then there's companies that do exceptionally well with supply chain execution, warehouse management, transportation management. And a lot of times it's funny because when I talk to people that are exceptionally good at network design, they have no idea what happens. Like I created a plan, I handed it, I was hoping they will do it, right? And yeah, the people that execute, yeah, they say, I didn't have any input in the planning. I'm just being forced to do whatever I was handed, right? So there's a lot of disconnect. And that is where there's a need for short-term execution. Like a solution like Alarmsoft can help with a 3-5 year game plan for the network. But then there's this element of sales and operations execution, S&OE, which is the short range. Yeah, if you have product coming into the network, right? Like how do you make decisions based on AI and machine learning to ensure you reduce the number of moves, to ensure you create profitable decisions for the entire enterprise. That is the whole idea of predictive fulfillment, right? And in the future, yeah, the landscape is going to be all about creating a predictive and adaptive supply chain that is resilient to changes, right? Like if, yeah, I created a plan, a baseline plan, but then now I have 7 things that has changed. So now what is my new optimal? And that is what is going to create success for a lot of retailers and brands. Now, that leads to the real opportunity, right? For a lot of retailers and brands, the opportunity lies in not just what you promise to a customer, but also understanding what is profitable promise in terms of balancing expectations of the customer and determining what is the right move as a seller or a brand. And that's where it is a necessity that retailers and brands look at all of the 3 assets in tandem. How do I use my distribution centers, my stores, right? All of those are my assets, are my 3PL locations. So I have an optimal balanced network at any point in time. How do I deploy inventory? Am I going to ship? If I am a retailer, let's say I have a distribution center in Denmark, and I have another distribution center in UK somewhere, and I have 500 stores. In the past, you would basically, send product into the DCs and then replenish to the stores. But now every single retailer is starting to do ship from stores. A lot of them are starting to use their stores as mini fulfillment centers, right? So the whole idea of leveraging your assets to put yourself in the best place possible for success, that is a necessity today. And that's where like you bring all of those pieces together and determine what is the best profitable to promise scenario for you. And along with that comes labor. right? Labor has always been a challenge, particularly these days, as you think about offering, shipping from store. Now, your store associate needs to operate like a warehouse associate, right? There's a lot more planning involved. So how do you continuously optimize your network, inventory, and labor in order to produce the best results for yourself as well as the end consumer? And now, now that we've talked about the opportunity, I want to share a little bit about the competitive landscape in this arena. Like we talked about a lot of the providers in demand planning and fulfillment execution, a lot of these names are probably fairly familiar, right? And even in our own evolution, our background involves, being in solution design capacity at a lot of these organizations. Our organization is made up of people from, Manhattan, Blue Yonder, Relics, and any number of providers, right? Where we played a part in delivering those solutions. But today, we have made it our mission to create a solution that is tailor-made to offer free, fast, convenient options while making it profitable. And this is not new. And in a lot of cases, when we encounter retailers or sellers looking at this problem, they all have 27 spreadsheets, that in some capacity try to solve for this in silo, right? And in some cases, it's still not producing the end results. So that is the technology opportunity we are solving for. What does that mean? What does that do, right, for a retailer or brand, right? When you think about, like you brought product into you planned your distribution network, you brought product into your network. Let's say you are starting to run a promotion, right? So when you run a promotion, how should that product be positioned, right? Like, are you going into a new market? So is the service level the biggest priority? Hey, I'm going into a new market. I want to demonstrate I can deliver in 2 hours or less, right? The inventory placement, labor planning, network alignment for that will be very different from I'm interested in creating the most profitable outcome. Or if you're selling a pair of $120 jeans, like fast fashion, it has a life cycle of 6 weeks, right? So there, your strategy is, I want to sell as much of that as close to the full price as possible. So in that instance, like how do you position that? So the amount of times you deeply discount is significantly lower. So predictive fulfillment is all about being able to apply all of those different constraints and continuously optimize your assets in order to create the most profitable outcomes for the organization. And as you think about the way solution is delivered, right? Like, at any point in time, there's a visual interface for people that have to make these decisions. Like if, whether it is a chief supply chain officer, whether it is somebody in allocation, it is somebody in supply chain. One of the big advantages of a solution like this is if you go back to the slide that presented the challenge with the round table, now all of these people are looking at the same information. The merchant cannot say, this is what I want to put in the store, because data tells them, like, you need this much of product of this particular category in a store location to service specific market demand, right? So that is one of the biggest advantages. And as part of the process, like, a solution like this is typically built ground up for omni-channel commerce, right? For retail, there's a lot of providers that have solved the replenishment problem. But then for the dynamic optimization of network assets, this is the type of solution that is built ground up that continuously tells you where do you put your product in the first place and how do you continuously balance transfers, how do you plan for labor, and what is the most profitable outcome for the company. Just a little bit in terms of the background of who we are. As I mentioned, a lot of us have the background with large providers like Manhattan. Yeah, my chief product officer, Vikas, yeah, it has been his lifetime to create innovative technology. He was instrumental in creating the Manhattan Active Omni product. Subsequently, he has repeated that in a bunch of other places. And one of our the executive chairman, Art Smock. He was the former CEO of FedEx Supply Chain. So we are people that, bring together a lot of the operational expertise, a lot of the technology expertise, and a lot of AI, ML. Yeah. And as part of the process, if you look at, some of the organizations that have done the most advanced work in micro fulfillment, urban fulfillment, it's companies like American Eagle. American Eagle now owns a company called Quiet Logistics. It's a technology first company. They kind of pioneered, as a retailer, they pioneered the art of helping other retailers with their distribution as a service, right? So, like a lot of background in AI, ML, data science, operations, supply chain, and that's how we are able to solve for a problem like this. And as you think about who we are as a company, yeah, we're not new to supply chain. We've done extensive work, as I stated, in a consulting services capacity. Yeah, a lot of what we are doing today is because we've been able to solve these for our customers. Yeah, just like I stated, using spreadsheets, we were doing that in the past. Now we're also transitioning to offering this as a software, right? And yeah, big presence in Europe. Yeah, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Europe. I mean, I was just telling Sophie, every time I'm here, yeah, I try to get as much coverage. I mean, my next stops this time are Florence and Frankfurt. Yeah, so excited. Yeah, and as part of the process, yeah, building out our team in Netherlands because yeah, we primarily have had the Europe operation for 4 years, but then on something called the Brexit happened, and that's created some unique challenges. But yeah, we're starting to get ourselves out there. But I think this is by far the best way we are going to help a lot of retailers and sellers. Now, I want to take a few minutes just to talk about the details of the solution. We talked about the problem in three parts. Now, yeah, when I look at the solution in three parts, yeah, so we talked about the continuous optimization of your network, which is all of your fulfillment nodes, DCs and stores, and your inventory, right? Which is yeah, like when I think about how customers service e-commerce, right? It has always been a muscle through strategy, right? So essentially, yeah, you have a solid plan for your stores, but then when it comes to e-commerce, like it's basically, yeah, you use up the replenished product from the store, and alternatively, like yeah, now you're out of stock for the customer that walks in. So those are the situations we will prevent using our predictive fulfillment technology. And we talked a lot about inventory placement and labor. Now I want to look at each of the individual parts in a little more detail, right? First, when you think about the network, right? Basically, for the network, what we do is we look at a lot of the forecasted data because forecasted data is typically 50% right? But we also look at a lot of the historical, actual trends, and we create our own market-centric forecast. Sometimes Gartner refers to this as, like a fulfillment forecast or a dynamic forecast. So we do a lot of that, and what that helps you do is identify, the right locations within your network that can create profitable outcomes, yeah, while you service fast, free, and convenient. Like for an omni-channel centric network, yeah, you have to determine the assets that you can leverage to your advantage. And that's kind of the first step. And the output of our exercise will tell you the preferred fulfillment network, like, which of the, obviously all of the DCs are going to service e-commerce, but then, yeah, which of your stores are candidates for fulfillment from the store, and in what percentage, what type of product, right? So that is kind of how we look at the first step, which is optimizing your nodes. And the next more important step is optimal inventory placement. I mean, I think inventory placement is not a new concept, right? Like a lot of organizations have mastered it, but for selling it in a store, right? Not so much when you don't know where the next customer order is going to come from, right? So every time you have an order, you have to make a decision. Are you going to fulfill it from a distribution center? Are you going to fulfill it from a store? What if the closest store doesn't have the product? Are you going to go into a store cluster? Or are you going to go back to the distribution center? So our technology predictively places a lot of the right products in the right vicinity for the most profitable outcome. And then as you get more orders and as you get more dynamic information, it will also adapt and prescribe changes in the network. So it'll also feed into an order management system so that the order management can make intelligent decisions at any point in time. A lot of times, when people think about, how to fulfill effectively, from the right location, people think of order orchestration and order management. But the challenge with that is it's already too late. By the time you are trying to fulfill a customer order, you can't change anything about your network. Whatever you have is whatever you get, right? That's why we are solving the problem more upstream so that we can make your network more effective, but also make your order management solution more effective. And as an output of that, that's where you can run a lot of simulation and trade-offs. Hey, what if I had a network like this? Like when you look at a weekly cycle, during day one, like hypothetically, if you had to service like 600,000 units, right? Our technology will tell you, okay, in order to process this, like the most optimal way to do this is from the 2 distribution centers. And when you execute this strategy, it's going to cost you, $10, for example, right? And with that execution strategy, you will be able to keep an SLA of 2 days or under. And you will have the ability to say, okay, I don't want 2 days or under. I want, next day. In that case, now it will tell you, okay, to execute that strategy, you need 2 distribution center and 17 stores. So at any point in time, you can continuously run simulations to determine the right course of action. So, which is why I mentioned in the past, like, yeah, retail should have a new type of CIO. So somebody that can clearly understand the decisions, because all of these decisions are tracked and remain in the system. It's not a human making a, hey, can you call Ram and figure out what he did on Tuesday? That's not what this is about, right? So it will continuously learn, and using AI and ML, it presents opportunities to continuously get better with your data. And the last part of this is labor, right? Yeah, I'm not too sure. I understand how complicated or challenging labor is over here, but yeah, I know a lot about the labor challenges in the US. It is very expensive. It's hard to find, particularly with the large online giants. Yeah, when they move into an area, they pay $2 more, and all of a sudden, I don't have any of my labor showing up for work, right? So it's which is part of the reason why, like, there's a lot of investment in automation and robotics. So being able to plan for labor, particularly for a dynamic setup, is even more important in this day and age. So that's where, like, using a lot of different input and constraints, we can run execution for, hey, I want to plan labor for a situation where I want to reduce my fulfillment cost, or I want to increase my service level, right? So any number of parameters that you want to model, you have the ability to do so. And those are kind of the three parts, which are your assets that you continuously optimize in order to create profitable outcomes. Last, hey, it was great, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I want to do all of this, but I don't know, what you need, or how do I start, or, how do you even do it, right? So that's where, yeah, a lot of what we have done so far, yeah, it involves, a lot of the data science and data analytics. Like, we take a lot of the static input, which any supply chain technology you implement will take. And we take a lot of the dynamic inputs, right? Because dynamic inputs reflect what is occurring within your asset base, right? Yeah, how are we picking this week? Yeah, what happened with some of the equipment in a particular DC. So that's like dynamic changes in your network. All of that leads to the capacity, right? Capacity, and being able to execute. And then we apply our algorithms for that information. That's where our AI and ML come into play, right? And basically, as part of the process, like, we allow for the ability to tailor outcomes for the customer, right? That's where we say, yeah, like, we have a layer of AI. I mean, I think AI, pretty much any conference you go to, I mean, that's a term you hear all the time, but we put that in practice, right? And as part of the process, we tell people, yeah, it takes, AI plus DI plus HI. AI is artificial intelligence, DI is decision intelligence, and then HI is human intelligence. We need all three parts to play in tandem in order for us to be successful. And that's how we coach and train our customers to be successful, right? That's why we are able to produce very powerful results. Like, for a logistic provider in the US, yeah, during the peak season, we improved their operating margin by 2%. That was just around savings of $1.8 million around the peak, right? So there is a lot of very powerful outcomes we can create, and which is part of the reason why, we are able to translate a lot of what we did in a consulting advisory services capacity to software as a service today, right? So I am so glad, like, I got the opportunity to be last. I hope that means at least the people here will remember me more. And with that, yeah, I want to share a little bit of, information on contact. Obviously, yeah, if you were interested and passionate about this topic, yeah, definitely I would love to hear from you. I mean, it's a very developing area, and yeah, we always enjoy conversations. Yeah, yeah, whether it leads to more opportunities, or if it leads for us to create a better platform for all of the retailers and sellers to be successful. Yeah, we're all up for that. And thank you all for the time, and thank you for being here. Sophie.
Yeah, and I promised that we would take some questions so everyone thinks of their questions. My first question is, of course, this is a really new topic and a really exciting topic, if I may add so. Could you talk a little bit about the type of company that would really benefit from having a predictive fulfillment strategy solution?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so it's multiple different applications. In between, I talked about the example of a fashion retailer that wants to sell a $120 pair of jeans with a 6-week life cycle, right? That is one example of application where you can create more profitable results within the time window. The next is a logistic provider that has a variety of constraints and inputs around peak season, right? And typically the logistics providers are held to much bigger accountability and penalties around what happens during peak. So as part of the process, not only can they execute more profitably, they also have the ability to use our solution to model things so that before they sign a contract, they can tell their retail customer, hey, here's what we anticipate, and they can sign much better contracts, right? So, and then the third area is like, yeah, if you think about, more of essential life-saving type products, like, yeah, if you think about hospitals, if you think about, yeah, where product needs to be at the right place at the right time with the right service level, and yet they want to do it profitably, that's another application. So mainly, yeah, in terms of obviously grocery has a big application too, because a lot of food and grocery today, yeah, they're getting closer and closer to the end consumer to offer 1 hour, 2 hour type services, right? So multiple different types of sellers, brands, and retailers use our technology.
That makes sense. And if I'm one of those companies that would think about joining the predictive fulfillment heroes, how would that journey look like for me?
Perfect. Yeah. So like this is pretty complex. I mean, that's one of the things that we have found in our journey that takes quite a bit of time, because every time like like a software vendor goes to sell a solution to a retailer, I mean, they always have the power of the S. Yeah, the WMS, the TMS, the OMS. We don't have a S. So we have to go through the process of education, right? And as part of that process, right, like, yeah, there's a good bit of change management involved, because like in a lot of cases, yeah, sometimes, yeah, the retailer or brand needs to figure out who will own the solution, right? And typically it ends up with the chief supply chain officer, right? And as part of the journey, yeah, one of the things all of these brands and retailers love is, yeah, we can get you from where you are today to having these outcomes in 10 weeks, right? Like without any integration, like we can take some of your data and produce the results. So that serves as the validation of the possibilities. And that's how like you go from a crawl, walk, run journey, to see the results first, apply it to your environment, then convert into a SaaS application.
Yeah. I'm just curious, are there any questions from the audience? If so, if you could raise your hand and then you could state your name and company and ask your question. I'll give you some more time to think about it. But Ram, I'm really curious. So, something we've talked in different sessions about was that the supply chain environment is really changing, and it's changing every day, but it's also the different disruptions we see in the world. I mean, a boat kind of stuck in a canal and then
Yes.
suddenly everybody's drama. How does Bricz adapt to those situations?
Yeah, so as part of the process, right? Like, yeah, one of the things that the customers typically did, yeah, in the past is, you know, they built what is called a control tower, right? Which basically gives you, yeah, the boat got stuck. So that means, yeah, the amount of product that was going to be in there is delayed by a certain duration, week, 2 weeks, whatever, right? So they got visibility. But in a lot of cases, it stopped at visibility, right? But the value is in creating the alternate execution path. So that's what we can use as input into our predictive fulfillment technology. Hey, now, like we know this product is not coming in. So what is my current state in terms of network, inventory, and labor? How do I reposition in order to create the best results using those constraints? That's how we are able to adapt.
And I'm sure that that means a lot to your customers. And I'm just wondering if I'm one of the retailers in the room considering working with you and creating a partnership. What would success look like for me?
Success for you would look like number one, you know, understanding the possibilities using data, right? Like you're not, making decisions in terms of just, hey, I know I have to do e-commerce, I'll do e-commerce. Yeah, that's okay, because yeah, it is important for your top line revenue, but it doesn't help your bottom line. So when a customer works with us, I think in the session before this, DHL talked about cart abandonment, right? That being a significant issue. That's one of the things that we solve for as well, because a lot of times that information of, hey, a customer got to the point of looking at the service levels and then, yeah, they decided to abandon the cart. So that is information that gets fed into our, AI ML algorithm. So next time, like, yeah, it improves the positioning of inventory. So success looks like having the right product at the right place and being able to sell it for the right price, so you can create more bottom line results for the retailer.
And you're you aren't a new company. You've been around for quite a while. What is the one piece of advice based on the various adventures you've gone through with Bricz that you would give someone who is looking to set the first step in predictive fulfillment?
I think, yeah, it is a wide, opportunity, right? And it is easier for a new age entrepreneur to create something that is tailor made for the specific problem, because a lot of large organizations, they have to stick to what has worked for them. They have to report back to shareholders. They can't scrap what they have to rebuild something. So as a first step, I think, yeah, have that belief, and more importantly, yeah, making sure that you are creating a solution for a problem that needs a solution, not creating a solution just because you want to create a solution.
We all like solutions. Is there any question that has popped in your mind that you would like to ask? This, this is the final opportunity. I'm not going to ask again. If not, I'm going to ask you the final question. As founder and CEO of Bricz, what's the dream? What's the dream for Bricz in 5 years, for example?
Wow. So I always tell people that when I started Bricz, the goal was to be able to go ring the bell on Nasdaq, right? And today, yeah, with the promise that our technology has created, that seems achievable and possible. A lot of work ahead in order to get to that point, but definitely achievable, possible. That's what we're all working towards. My EMEA sales director James is here. He has been helping socialize a lot of the predictive fulfillment in Europe, right? So we're starting to make significant inroads in terms of working towards our dream. And yeah, like along with that, I don't think I will complain, taking a couple of months on a yacht in Morocco. So that works too. Yeah.
We have a couple blue headphones that are going to leave this audience and are going to go home to their companies, to their everyday lives. What is the thing you would want them to remember about Bricz?
It is that we are passionate about solving the problem, right? Yeah, along the way, yeah, we are happy, to generate a lot of revenue, but definitely, yeah, because of the passion, yeah, we are able to create very powerful outcomes, and that's something that we have always, searched for. I know you mentioned we're a company that existed for 10 years, right? Yeah, for the better part of the first 8 years, we were searching for the problem that we wanted to solve. And in the last 2 years, yeah, that's how we have transformed ourselves into where we are today. So that's something I want for people to realize, remember. And yeah, definitely, yeah, I would love for everybody on the blue team to go tell 10 people, 100 people about predictive fulfillment and Bricz.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights on predictive fulfillment and what an opportunity it is for so many of us. It's been really great to have you. Thank you for sticking around in this last session. There are still some keynotes to come, 3, I believe, if you want to join us for that. Otherwise, it was so nice to have you at Deliver 2024, and we hope to see you next year again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you.